The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Kyle, do you want to know why the Canucks are winning this series?
Why?
Because they're led by JT Miller, who's got 3 kids. You want to know how many kids Connor McDavid has? 0. Okay, if you can take care of 3 kids, you can beat the Edmonton Oilers. Let's go, baby. This is Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, one love to all the moms and all the dads out there, and one love to you. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a Canucks Raider since 2013, currently with Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into today's episode, we got to thank you for tuning into Locked On Canucks, because guess what is your Canucks every day, even if I'm out of the country, baby. Okay, and hey, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe, like, follow, leave a review for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, got to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious for taunting your friends. So go download Monopoly Go now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on! Guess what, Kyle? It's also nearly time for the Canucks and Oilers to be game on in round 2 of the Western Conference semifinals. I don't know if they call it the semifinals anymore, but anyways, I'm jacked up, man. First time in 32 years this is happening, and I know everyone's picking against the Canucks. We touched on it yesterday, but I truly do believe that the Canucks not only have a chance in this series, but are going to win this series, okay? That's the kind of energy we're bringing. Locked On Canucks. Again, my name's Trevor Beggs. We're going to talk about why the Canucks are winning this series, okay? Keep it light, keep it positive. And let me introduce my co-host, okay? He likes to call me the darkest guy in the program, but I'm trying to change that. Kyle always keeping it light. Kyle Bowen, how you doing, brother?
We're keeping it light. We're keeping it positive, but we're also keeping it very, very realistic, okay? And can I touch on that point even more before I shout out the Don't Doze Art Lab and the podcast network that is Locked On? Because, man, oh, man, I'm tired of all this love and appreciation for the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs, right? In due time, they got to get it done. This is a team with a lot more playoff experience. They got Draisaitl, they got McDavid, blah, blah, blah. How many times have they gone past the second round with McDavid? Is it once or twice?
Once. They've gone past there once, and they didn't win a game. They have not won a conference final game in the McDavid Draisaitl era.
Where's all this swagger coming from? You know what I'm saying? Well, where's it coming from? Exactly. Okay. Anyways, I don't mind if we are the underdogs, but realistically speaking, this is a 50-50 series, and it's going to come down to goaltending, in my opinion. And I think in game 1, the Canucks are going to ruin Stuart Skinner's, I wouldn't say career because he's still very young, but they're going to ruin his confidence like they did with Jack Campbell early on in the season. Okay. For real. I think the Canucks are about to shock the hockey world.
Yeah, and it would be a shock, right? Like we said yesterday, 23 out of 24 writers at ESPN picking the Edmonton Oilers. Shout out to Ryan Clark, the lone ESPN employee who picked the Canucks, saying Canucks in 7. Look, I found it interesting, Kyle. And you look through some of the comments from yesterday's episode where we teed up this series for the first time, not together at the same time, but teeing it up. And a lot of the Oilers fans are kind of pessimistic too, right? And you look at both of these teams, and they've both gone through a lot of pain, all right? There's a lot of scar tissue in both of these fan bases. Now, I think the scar tissue is a little different in Vancouver for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, there's been no cup in this city. I don't know, Kyle, people that are, our age or maybe the age of 40 and under, that doesn't mean anything to them because they weren't really around for those Oilers Cup runs. But the other thing to remember, too, is that the Oilers walked into 4 first overall picks, including Connor McDavid. So I think there's less sympathy from the rest of the hockey world for the Edmonton Oilers. That being said, when you have 2 of the best players in the world on your team, you got to think at some point the Oilers are going to get over the hump. And I think that's the main reason why there's so much faith in the Oilers to win this series, because it's the belief that McDavid and Draisaitl are going to figure it out. Now, I think
you know what, Trevor?
Ignores...
I'm going to have to rebuttal just a bit, because I think that, even though I don't get where all this confidence is coming from when it comes to just supporting the Oilers in general, regardless if they were playing the Canucks or not, because I don't know how the whole league is making this team out to be this juggernaut in the playoffs, right? They're not quote unquote Vegas. You know what I'm saying? Like that pedigree and that that execution is not there from that bunch. That being said, they are facing the Vancouver Canucks, and the Canucks scored 14 goals against Nashville in 6 games, right? They only had 3 points from Elias Pettersson. If you look at all 4 of their wins, right? They scored 2 goals in 12 seconds in game 1 to win game 1. They win a game with 12 shots in game 3. Brock Besser ties the game up with 6 seconds left in a game they got dominated in game 4. And then they win game 6 with 90 seconds left on the clock with a third string goaltender, right? I think there's a lot of that and a lot of realization that the Canucks kind of got lucky, quote unquote, in round 1. And that's where a lot of this pessimism is coming from when it's asked upon these analysts to pick who's going to win this series, because the Oilers look powerful and the Canucks look like they squeaked by.
No, and that's a fair point. I think I will say first and foremost, I do think the reason why everyone's picking the Oilers to move on is McDavid and Draisaitl and the belief that they're going to figure it out. But you make a great point, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
A secondary reason that the Canucks did not look like an overwhelming favorite in round 1 against the Nashville Predators. They did kind of look like a team that squeaked by. Now, again, I do want to spin it positive and talk about why I think the Canucks could win this series.
Yeah.
And again, let's start with the big matchup, okay? And to me, the big matchup is JT Miller against Connor McDavid. And I mentioned it off the top, okay? You got the dad of 3 versus the dad of none, okay? Who you could, Connor McDavid, maybe he's a virgin for all we know, and that's okay, man.
Whoa.
That's okay. That's all good. But JT Miller, again, this guy's been a leader for this Vancouver Canucks team. And I know it was the regular season. I know it was a different Oilers team. But JT Miller all season long has shown that he can go against the other team's best players. And maybe not necessarily shut them down, but at least play things evenly and above evenly at even strength. And, JT Miller, the Brock Besser, they outscored the Oilers top line at even strength early on in the season. Again, we're not going to talk too much about the regular season, but again, I think JT Miller proved that he could go against the opposition's best players. And, they're going to need JT Miller to slow Connor McDavid down a little bit, or at least keep up in the goal scoring department there. And, that was the Canucks' best line in round 1 by a country mile. And, you can talk about Hughes Suter and his lack of finish there, but JT Miller made the joke when they won game 6 that Hughes Suter maybe should have had like 10 goals in that series, right? Because he was all over it. I was even watching kind of some highlights this morning from the series, and Hughes Suter had more posts than I remembered. So, that line, again, they've been good offensively, they've been defensively responsible, and they got a big task ahead of them to go against Connor McDavid and the top line of the Edmonton Oilers.
They do, and this is the opportunity that we've been talking about since the start of the season, right? And we did 2 things, and the second thing might become something that happens in reality, and it will be a scene to behold. But yeah, we called this early, okay? In October, we talked about this rivalry, right? The NHL needs the Oilers and the Canucks to be a thing. And, fast forward to the now, and it's happening right in front of us, right? They got the locked on bump, and we're about to see some of the best hockey we're about to see in our lives. And a big part of that equation, or again, that dream coming true, is the matchup between Miller and McDavid. Now, a lot of people are talking about Lindholm possibly getting a lot of that matchup as well. Dude, some of the film, the history, right, regarding Calgary versus Edmonton in the past and in the playoff series proves that Lindholm can't do it, okay? He couldn't do it with Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau, and that stopped McDavid. I do think Miller's going to get a huge chunk of that matchup, and this is when part B of my assumption may come true, and that's JT Miller becoming one of the faces of hockey, okay? For real. He looks like a hockey player, an old school hockey player. He kind of plays like that too. And now he has an opportunity when everyone's going to be watching this series, okay? You got the best player since Gretzky playing, Vancouver, Canadian matchup, blah, blah, blah. The whole league's going to be watching. And if Miller can dominate offensively and also slow down Connor McDavid and get in his face and maybe punch him in the face a couple times, in some scrums, bro, this guy may be one of the most popular players in hockey. And that's kind of surprising because, again, the guy's only making $8 million or 8.5, for real. This is when a lot of us are going to appreciate JT Miller more, start calling him very underrated, and start calling that contract a steal. Again, JT Miller is about to be the face of hockey if he gets past Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid.
Oh, he's the most powerful man in the NHL, man. Dad of 3. Dad of 3, okay? You guys going home and taking care of 3 kids, man.
You keep talking about this whole dad thing. Are you experiencing a new life going on a road trip with 2 kids? Like, are you appreciating fatherhood more and just the grind? And I guess the easier question is this, right? I know we got a lot of hockey to talk about, but what you're doing right now is it quote unquote harder than waking up and going to work? Like, I know harder is a strong word because it's a beautiful thing as well, but you know what I'm saying? You're emphasizing this whole fatherhood thing a lot on this episode.
It's okay. I'll say it this way, and this is going to sound sappy. It's easier in the sense that, I love spending time with my kids. My son, 10 months old, running around, climbing everything. He is a ton of work, man. He is like 1-on-1. And when it's 2-on-1, man, oh man, like I respect the hell out of my wife because that is a tough job. So all I gotta say is when you're outnumbered as a parent, and JT Miller and his wife Natalie, they're outnumbered. Okay, that's a tough go. And yeah, man, I just know JT Miller again, leader in that locker room, and obviously he's got to be a leader in the house, taking care of. I think his kids are 6, 4, and 1 or something like that. So it's a ton of work, man. He's got that life experience that Connor McDavid doesn't have. Okay, so I'm finding some ways to be braggadocious about the Canucks here. But on the other side, I do want to talk about a couple other things with the Canucks in terms of why I think they could beat the Edmonton Oilers. And it comes down to 2 things for me that I'm going to touch on the other side. And that's 1, even strength play, and 2, the return of Elias Pettersson. Let's get to that on the other side. Before we do that, let's shout out our friends over at Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to pause here and talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. There's so much good stuff in this game. We can't ignore it. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, including unique stickers you can trade with a friend to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. That's aggression, baby. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on!
People, we back doing this at the Don't Doze Art Lab, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks. One love to the studio for allowing us to produce this show here. Man, oh man, they do take care of that West Coast bias. One love also to the Locked On Podcast Network, giving us that culture, right? They told us at the beginning of the year, tell the people it's your team every day. That's the call to action. And we said, you know what? That's not the call to action, okay? It's your Canucks every day. And it's us against the world, and it's us against the world again against the Edmonton Oilers. And some other hockey podcasts out there. How about Ryan Whitney, man? Chirping our fan base, rightfully so, right? He's an Oilers fan, a bit of an Oilers bandwagoner too, but saying we have some of the worst fans in the world. Also calling a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old a POS for celebrating too hard on Scott Road. Man, oh man, this rivalry is something else. Again, the whole hockey world is going to be watching this series. And with that being the case... If Elias Pettersson thought the pressure was on in the last series or post-contract or prior to the contract being signed, he hasn't seen anything yet. And I wonder how he's going to get himself out of this quote-unquote slump. I guess it really is a slump, and turn into the player that we all know he can be, because if the Canucks want to get past the Oilers, he's got to be a big part of the equation.
Yeah, and I mean, Kyle, you and I can sit here until we're blue and green in the face and talk about why the Canucks are going to win this series, but let's face it, the Canucks are not going to win this series if Elias Pettersson is playing like the Elias Pettersson we're seeing right now, right? And, one big thought I had on this after watching the Bruins and Panthers game last night was that Pettersson, again, we're putting all this pressure on him to figure it out and come on, be the best player in the world and be the player everyone thinks you can be. The thing about great players is they almost always have a caddy, right? Even this year you got Zach Hyman benefiting from McDavid. Now McDavid's on a different tier, but again, look at the Florida Panthers, and Alexander Barkov and Sam Reinhart for most of the year have been an amazing duo. You look at Matthew Tkachuk and Carter Verhaeghe; they're the duo that made me think of Elias Pettersson last night. We're asking Elias Pettersson to be the savior of the Vancouver Canucks, playing him with Nils Höglander, who does not look like the same player we saw in the regular season right now. He's figured out in the playoffs, and Ilya Mikheyev, who has 1 goal in his last 50-plus games. That's not an exaggeration. He has 1 goal in his last 50-plus games. These are the guys we're putting alongside our player making $11.6 million per season starting next year. that's just not good enough right now. But it's a tough situation for Rick Tocchet because I'm not quite sure where you go. So Kyle, I know we've talked about it a lot on this show. Should Rick Tocchet be shaking up the lines ahead of game 1 against the Edmonton Oilers?
Well, he won't be doing it prior to game 1. I think at yesterday's practice, everything looked the same as it did in game 6 versus Nashville. That being said, it is a really strong question. And, 97 reasons why the Canucks will beat the Oilers, Pettersson being a big part of that. And if that's the case, you kind of don't want this lineup or these line combinations to struggle, right? You kind of want to take the issue at home and win the first game for sure. And if that's the case, lines are not going to be juggled and all this jazz. But I don't know. I feel as if the Canucks are still one sloppy performance away, aka another sub 20 shot performance away from having to shake up the lines. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. And I know a lot of people are talking about Garland, Joshua, and Lindholm, and there were some people giving us pushback about our statement regarding Teddy Bluger and his place on that line and all this jazz. But man, oh man, until we see consistent fluid offense from this team, again, it's the same team that had 14 goals in 6 games, the same team that had minus 20 shots a couple times in that series, including a 12-shot effort. The skepticism is going to be out there. Now, that being said, we're facing a completely different team. Maybe the openness of this series allows guys like Pettersson and Miller and Lindholm to just be more fluid and more instinctual with their offensive instincts. On that note, I mentioned this yesterday, and I think I want to throw this question over to you. I know this is a scary thing to do, a scary thing to put out in the world, but I feel as if the play of McDavid and Draisaitl and their quote-unquote dominance, because, bro, they're some of the best players, not only of our generation, but of all time. Like, look at their playoff points and whatnot. These guys are on a mission, right? I think the quote-unquote dominance from them may inspire a guy like Elias Pettersson to take his game to another level, because I truly believe that will come first before Rick Tocchet is forced to change the lines, because he had all these chances to do so in the last series, and he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, I certainly hope you're right.
Yeah.
Greatness does inspire greatness, and again, the Canucks are going to need some form of greatness from Elias Pettersson to be relevant in this series. I think their defense can, maybe make it a 6-game series, but they're not going to win if Elias Pettersson has no goals. The guy's got to show up. And again, if he's not showing up on the score sheet and scoring himself, he's got to be setting up his teammates. And I think the biggest area where Pettersson needs to have an impact is on the power play. And I do want to talk about their even strength game in a minute. I think that's really an area where the Canucks should have an advantage. But on the power play, Elias Pettersson's got to start creating. And again, he needs a lucky bounce go his way. I do think as the series went on against Nashville, there was some signs of life for that power play, but Elias Pettersson's got to be more involved. There's just no way to get around that.
Yeah, and look at this stat, right? Elias Pettersson had 8 shots in 6 games against the Nashville Predators. I don't think I'm lying when I say this, but I truly do believe in Elias Pettersson's last 23 games, he may only have 20 shots or 22 shots. Something's got to give. Again, the inspiration that he may get from Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid may push him over the top, because this was a guy who we never compared this guy to McDavid or that tier, because McDavid's in a tier of his own, but we definitely put this guy in that place, right? A top 5 player, top 7 player. And now we're going into a series where, he's this X Factor type of player for us, but before he was an X Factor, he was just one of those guys. I feel as if he's on the verge of not being forgotten about, but being placed as the 4th or 5th option when it comes to us finding our advantage over the Oilers. Because I'm liking what I'm seeing from Boeser, complete player. There's the eye test is telling me that, again, Brock Boeser's transforming himself into a dominant offensive player in different ways, whether it be points or just keeping the puck in the offensive zone, winning war battles, being engaged. I'm loving his game way more than Pettersson. You talk about Miller. You talk about a guy like Quinn Hughes. Bro, I said it a couple weeks ago. Look at Connor Garland. I know he didn't have the strongest series against Nashville, but there he is in the offensive zone, not losing the puck, doing his thing behind the net, keeping plays alive. I feel as if Pettersson will be able to see this and maybe feel like he's being kind of forgotten about, and maybe that will instinctively motivate him to take his game to another level. Because why wait till the offseason? Why wait till some sports psychology or a new training regimen and whatnot? There's an avenue here for him to find himself back to being that alien, just being in this environment, and that's playing against McDavid, Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, 100%. And again, you want him to be contributing on the power play, but I think at even strength is an area where Elias Pettersson, has consistently been strong. I mean, look, Kyle, it was only in January where we're looking at the stats, and this guy on a per 60 basis had some of the most even strength points in the NHL. It should be a strong suit of his game. And again, things change after the All-Star break for whatever reason. But Elias Pettersson still has it in him. And again, Gigatronic said who's the X factor in the series. And I mean, it's kind of sad that Elias Pettersson is an X factor right now, because if he shows up, this series, again, I'm going to feel pretty confident about the Canucks coming out on top now.
Me too. Bro, okay, like our eyes have not seen the complete version of the Vancouver Canucks with Lindholm as a third-line center because we haven't seen the best from both Elias and Elias, And if somehow, some way that engine is turned on, bro, the Canucks are the best team. They're one of the best teams in hockey. Straight up. If that happens, they compete with Dallas. They compete with Colorado, and they're going to kick the Oilers' ass. I feel it. I really do. Now, it's a big if because we haven't seen that for like 40 or 50 games. And it's fair to say that it may not happen because that's been a long time. It's not like a 1 week blimp. It's been half of this hockey season where Pettersson is kind of boring. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. He's going to figure it out, buddy. Again, you got to believe it's a new series, new life, new round. And again, I do think the Canucks have an advantage, and it's not just Pettersson. Again, I'll touch on the other side. Let's wrap up the show. A couple comments and talk about why I do think the Canucks have a big advantage at even strength. All that coming up as we wrap up here on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day. Kyle from the Donairs Art Lab in Vancouver. I'm recording from Coeur d'Alene in Idaho. Okay, that's it's your team every day. Your Canucks every day. No matter where I am. Let's go, baby. Let's wrap up the show on the other side after shouting at our friends over at FanDuel. All right, you know the deal. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. If you want to make a shot at this series, and again, the Canucks don't have the odds in front of me, but I did look it up earlier. They are underdogs in Game 1 against the Edmonton Oilers. So if you're liking the Canucks to come out strong, remember, 4-0 against the guys in the regular season. It doesn't mean much, but I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. It happened. All right, but if you want to make a bet, make sure you go make it on FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook.
Man, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight in Vancouver, all my real fans.
People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks, Beggsy and Bowen, no matter what. Doing what we got to do, and that's doing what we love, man. For real, this is what we love. And since I love it so much, I will always be wearing protection, okay? For real. Until the Canucks win the Stanley Cup, I'm not having children. You heard it here first. Straight up, man. Straight up. I saw a video online of a wife getting jealous of her boyfriend being so euphoric about the Vancouver Canucks because she has never seen that amount of love being poured her direction. And I know it's sad and it's pathetic because life's not that deep and sports shouldn't be that deep. But the fact of the matter is, you and you and you and you and you and you probably fell in love with the Canucks first, or fell in love with the Canucks before you fell in love with anything else, right? Consciously speaking, like you made the choice to love the Canucks, right? Your parents were in your life. If you're lucky, you loved your parents just based on genetics and DNA and good behavior and family ties. But when you went out into the world and you made your own choices, the first time you gave your heart to something was probably the Vancouver Canucks. And this is, again, one of the most beautiful times in my life. And this series, especially if we win, bro, I know it would be our 4th time going to the conference finals, but just to beat the Oilers would be something else. Because I got to bring this up. We might have a lot of Oilers fans watching this. If the Canucks beat the Oilers, that means we killed the Oilers. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of pressure on the Oilers. No, seriously speaking. If the Vancouver Canucks in year one of their window opening defeat the Oilers, eliminate the Oilers, maybe, just maybe, the Canucks eliminate their chance of ever winning a Stanley Cup again.
Yeah, that would be. It could be the end of
Yeah.
this core, right? And
Yeah.
I gotta say, Kyle, you make a great point about being in love with the Vancouver Canucks before anything else. Look, my first crush was Jessica Simpson. Okay, I don't know, I was like 9 years old. Guess
Okay.
what? I loved the Vancouver Canucks before that. Okay, you heard it for your first on Locked On Canucks. Vancouver Canucks came before my first boner. Okay, that's just the way it went. Okay, Vancouver
Boing.
Canucks been a big part of my life for a long, long time. And I try to be realistic, but I also believe in this team, man. And again, I went back and I was watching some of the Oilers highlights from round one. And one of the observations I had is that, again, this team is so deadly on the power play. Their PK looked good against a middling LA power play. The LA power play is something special to me. It was special teams is what won them the series, and it won them pretty decisively in 5 games. At even strength, I think this team can be had. And you look at them at even strength. I know the McDavid line. Delusional Canucks fans. Shout out to the comments. I love it. Delusional Canucks fans. Yeah, of course we're delusional, man. It's sports. But you look at this team at even strength, the Edmonton Oilers, and the McDavid line. They go ahead and they're humming at even strength. I think McDavid's even strength game defensively has come a long ways. Draisaitl, on the other hand, I still think Draisaitl struggles a lot defensively. I think positionally, he's always just looking to break out of the zone and move up the ice. And that line, you look at Nugent Hopkins, Kane, and Draisaitl, they were not good at even strength in round one against the LA Kings. And then you look at the Oilers' depth after that. I mean, the Canucks' depth, I don't think they've been the same rate. But again, you look at that advantage down the middle. And if Pettersson shows up, JT Miller's doing his thing. You have Elias Lindholm, who had a pretty good opening round. Those guys should give the Canucks an advantage. And again, for the Oilers, rest of their bottom 6, Warren Fogle, Ryan McLeod, Corey Perry, they were okay in round 1. And then Dylan Holloway, a couple goals, Derek Ryan, Matthias Janmark had their moments. But again, I do think this team can be had on even strength, and especially on defense as well. Okay, Bouchard and Ekholm, they've been rock solid all season long. Bouchard's had his warts here and there, but overall that duo has been good. But I look at Darnell Nurse, Cody Ceci, I look at Brett Kulak, Vincent Desharnais, and I look at what the Canucks have on defense. When 1 through 6, they were playing rock solid defense against the Nashville Predators. I'm feeling pretty good about this Canucks team against the Edmonton Oilers at even strength in this series.
That's beautiful, man. Look at that breakdown, man. You are excited. I don't know if Trevor Beggs is being delusional. I think your hockey nerd brain is going off, and you see a path where the Vancouver Canucks actually beat the Oilers and do so, quote unquote, easily. Maybe.
Ooh. I don't know about easily, but I think there's a strong chance. I said yesterday Canucks is 7. I'm sticking with it.
My birthday's on game 5, so I want the Canucks to win in 5 games. You know what? It's possible, man. It's possible. This series is going to be a beautiful thing. You just broke down all the defensemen that we have versus their defensemen. I want to bring up this hockey nerd question, and then we'll get to some comments before we get out of here, okay? Because I feel as if this has to be the case. Now, I tried to do a little bit of research on this dream Canucks fans are having, right? This equation that they put in their minds that is going to work out, right? The McDavid stopper, the McDavid slower downer is going to be Nikita Zadorov. And I'm like, I don't know if that makes sense, okay? For real. So I did some research, looked at some tweets, looked at some memes, and apparently, like a lot of defensemen in hockey, McDavid just owns Nikita Zadorov. He also kind of owned Elias Lindholm too. So I want to see this. And I kind of want to see it ASAP, and I want to see it be a thing. And I think Tocchet has to push this button in game 1 to see how a quote-unquote injured or bruised up Quinn Hughes can do against a Connor McDavid, because that's the matchup a captain of your team, a Norris candidate of your team, has to take on.
Yeah, and you know what, Kyle? I don't know if we're gonna have a chance for another live show before the Canucks play their first game, because I'm on the road, I'm moving and grooving. But I will record a segment for you talking about Quinn Hughes and Archer Seelovs a bit more in depth. So stay tuned for that. On Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. But I think you're right. And I look at this series, and again, I kind of broke it down pretty quickly there. But I think, if you have JT Miller going up against Connor McDavid at even strength and Quinn Hughes going up against Connor McDavid at even strength, if those guys can play McDavid to a draw, it comes down to what the other 9 forwards, the other 4 defensemen can do against each other. And again, I do like the Canucks in that scenario, because I think defensively they can shut it down. And again, look at the LA Kings in round 1. They were not a fantastic team at even strength against, a Kings team that was pretty stingy, but Kings controlled scoring chances. They controlled expected goals, all that stuff. We talked about the Canucks not having the shots against the Nashville Predators. Well, they controlled expected goals. They controlled scoring chances, even though it didn't show up on the shot clock. So again, I do see a path for the Canucks to get by the Edmonton Oilers. And again, they got to be the better team in even strength, though. It's It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and if you're going to put all your eggs in the basket to slow down Connor McDavid, and if that basket includes Quinn Hughes and JT Miller, that means you're probably reducing some of their offensive zone time, which again means a guy like Pettersson has to wake up, man. Again, if you thought the noise was loud in the last 90 days, bro, we have not seen anything, okay? Because again, this series is going to be the biggest playoff series the Canucks have played in a very, very long time. Two Canadian teams, Pettersson versus McDavid. That was supposed to be a thing for a long time to come. And now look at how we're talking. Like before the season started, Pettersson's a Selke candidate. Pettersson's McDavid's worst enemy, you know? Like we wanted that to be a thing. And now we're just hoping that this guy finds his game. Anyways, we'll talk more about this series tomorrow. Cannot wait till tomorrow. It's hard to tee up a series for like 3 or 4 days without seeing any games. And I can't wait to do so. Let's get to some comments though before we get out of here. And man, look at this one from Callum, man. I like this one, okay? I hear the Latvian national anthem playing somewhere. Are they going to play the Latvian national anthem at tomorrow's game? Maybe. Are they going to sell pink t-shirts with large patterns on the t-shirts as some sort of merch to support She Loves? Are they going to get rid of the towel and just, you know, maybe get everyone to wear these pink t-shirts? Who knows? Because Archer She Loves is really, really turning into a big, big, big story. Look at this comment from Infamous, a hockey question, okay? Position beats speed, right? We have Smart D. I get it. Home with the West Coast bias, right? Nikita Zadorov, his IQ seems to be something new to him. I feel as if he's leveled up in that regard. I think Adam Foote has done a lot for Nikita Zadorov, and no longer is he like this number 5 or 6 defenseman who has these character traits that make him kind of explosive, but also highly, highly vulnerable. I think he's leveled up again. He knows what he's doing. He's kind of circling out, rounding out his game into becoming a top 4 defenseman, not making mistakes, being in the right position. Look at those hits against Roman Josi. That wasn't a lot of athleticism. That was just timing things right. His game has improved. That being said, yeah, I know position beats speed, but McDavid's on a different planet when it comes to his level of speed. Let's be real. Again, there's a big reason why we think Pettersson is going to be inspired by McDavid, and that's because he's that guy, okay? And look at this comment from Aaron Gray. Dude, captain of one of the most notorious ball hockey teams in Surrey, British Columbia, okay? Straight up, okay? My wife is from South America, and her family has never been into hockey, but they are starting to become Canucks fans because of this playoff push. Begsy, I'm not sure if you know Aaron or not, but what do you think a sentence like that means to the culture of the Vancouver Canucks and your heart in general? Because that's a beautiful comment.
Nothing butters my bread more than a comment like that. Shout out to Aaron Gray, captain of the best ball hockey team ever, captain of Surrey, mayor of Surrey. Look, I mean, the playoffs are where new fans are born, right? And Kyle, we talked about it, I believe, last summer now, right? Every day is to know that if you've been with us for, since the beginning. But the Canucks kind of lost a generation of fans, right? You had 10 years of not making the playoffs, not making much noise. And Kyle, I think you saw it even in our own little circles of friends, right? People who were casual fans all of a sudden stopped caring about the Canucks. Yeah. And I think, again, this is hopefully the start of a long window of contention for the Canucks. Hopefully they just bring it all home this year. But again, you want that year after year success. You want your team to be entertaining. You want your team to be in the dance and making noise, getting the heart racing. And again, you want new fans to get into the game of hockey. You got to have a good team. And thankfully the Canucks seem to be there once again.
Yeah. One love to the Vancouver Canucks. I'm going to read one more comment because I know Trevor has to get out of here, and I'm pretty sure I see your kid hanging off that branch behind you for real. So you better do something there. Okay, look at this. This comes from an Oilers fan, barbershop window. 90% of the people on Scott Road probably can't even name 5 Canucks players. Half of the jabronis out there were wearing Kessler jerseys, pulled it out of the back of their closet. That's been sitting there since 2011. Dude, okay, first of all, Scott Road, Surrey in general, brown people in general, Punjabi people in general, right? These Hindus, I'm talking to myself, right? I've been on Scott Road too. Dude, we know hockey, man. We know hockey. I know that pisses a lot of Canadians off. Oh, this is my sport. This is my country. Dude, shut up. Shut up, okay? Mark my words. In 50 years, there's going to be a couple of Canadian teams owned by some brown people, for real. It's just the truth. It's just the truth, okay? We know our hockey. And so what if half of the quote-unquote jabronis just came outside right now to support the Canucks? Bro, in the last 13 years, the Canucks have been highly mediocre, really gross, really ugly. And your team in that time's gotten past the second round once with Connor McDavid. Y'all are a joke. It's just the truth. And when the Canucks beat you, I'm telling you, it's the end of this era of Edmonton Oilers hockey. There's a 60% chance that when the Canucks beat the Oilers in 5 games, McDavid asked for a trade. So suck on that. For real, man.
Yeah, suck on that. Honestly, to the barbershop window comment, hey, we appreciate everyone commenting, even if you're a hater. But again, there's casual fans in every market. So if you're an Oilers fan thinking that everyone's this hardcore fan, you're wrong, and you're dead wrong. Because I know casual Oilers fans who probably don't know any other players in the team other than Connor McDavid. So, buddy, if you're living in your own little bubble there, you're a joke. Get out of here. Go Canucks, go. Let's go, baby. The games start for real tomorrow. We probably got one more episode of Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day before then. Kyle, we probably won't be able to do it live because I'm hitting the road for Montana tomorrow morning, but I will try to record a segment because 2 guys on my mind. They're Archer Shelovs and Quinn Hughes. I want to talk about how these 2 unlikely icons can help, save the Vancouver Canucks franchise. That's the kind of energy I'm going to bring in my segment later on tonight. Kyle, anything to say to the people before we get out of here?
This guy's Stoffer for Premier asking, how many Canadian players are on the Canucks? Not a lot, okay? And I've said this before, and I mean it, okay? If the Canucks win the Stanley Cup this year with Team America as their core, because that's the case, right? Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser, JT Miller, Thatcher Demko, blah, blah, blah. I will be cheering for Team America in the Olympics, okay? That's just the truth. Because it's cup or bust. It's Stanley Cup only. I already got a couple gold medals in the Olympics. I don't need that. I just want a Stanley Cup, okay? For real. Look at this
Seriously.
comment.
Last comment for the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, MMA Sucka Beggs looks like he's in a minimum security jail or something. This is the backyard of my Airbnb, buddy.
look at this guy talking ish about Vancouver again. Honestly, look at the background that Trevor has behind him. Bro, that would be a 5-star place for people in Edmonton to go to and take their families, okay? Take some tourist photos, okay? So get out of here. Anyways, Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, Locked On Canucks, one love to the Don't Doze Art Lab for, again, giving us a space to produce the show. They really do care about that West Coast bias. The Locked On Podcast Network also caring about that West Coast bias, right? Giving us a platform to do this, and that's giving you your Canucks every day. Hit the like button, subscribe. And one love, man. One love. Just enjoy the games. Again, this is going to be a really, really important series, a really, really fun series. And let's end whatever this era is called for the Edmonton Oilers.
Let's go, buddy. Go Canucks, go. And hey, you know what? For those bitter Oilers fans, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. And it must suck living in the ugliest place in Canada, most beautiful country on earth. But Edmonton, man, oh man, that is something else. But let's go. Let's get out of here. Shout out to the everydayers, occasional listeners, the first-time listeners, the new subscribers, and those of you who joined us on the live show on YouTube. No matter if you're joining us live or listening after the fact, it don't matter to us, okay? We appreciate you. You are what makes Locked On Canucks what it is. Again, Kyle and I probably won't be going live until Friday morning after Game 1. I'm on the road. I'm moving and grooving. I'm actually camping for Game 1. That's my dirty little secret, but I'll find a way, man. I'll find a way, and the Canucks will find a way to win this series. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Kyle, anything to say to the people?
Peace, peace, peace. Let's get out of here, man.
Let's go. Okay, I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Kyle Bound. Go Canucks, go. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver